Welcome back to These Things Are Written on this Tuesday. Glad that you're joining us again. We are continuing with Leviticus. We're starting with chapter 17, going through 19. As we move into this passage, we just focused on, in chapter 16 on yesterday, on the Day of Atonement and the proper way to sacrifice. Again, after the death of Aaron's sons, two of his sons, because they did not offer the fires properly. They didn't do everything right, not just the little details, but their attitude behind it, I believe, was a lot with that. So he's shown them how to do the proper sacrifices. And in this section, he now starts to talk about those unlawful sacrifices, different laws against different things. And I'll tie these all together as we go through them, hopefully to better understand how this fits together. Often they say that chapter 17 through 22 go together. So we're stopping at 19 and then picking up from 20 through 22, I believe it is, tomorrow, as we get closer to wrapping up. Let's begin with chapter 17, verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Abraham and his sons, and to all the people of Israel, and say to them, This is the thing that the Lord has commanded. If anyone out of the house of Israel kills an ox or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or kills it outside the camp, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of the meeting, to offer it as a gift to the Lord in front of the tabernacle of the Lord, blood guilt shall be imputed to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among the people. Let's move forward to verse 7. So they shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices to goat demons, after whom they whore. And this shall be a statute forward for them throughout their generations. So at the end, towards the end of this section, we see the reason why God prohibits, why he wants them to offer the animal of whom they shed blood before the altar of the Lord, so they don't make false, wrong sacrifices in the wrong way, or more so, most likely, so that they don't sacrifice to false gods. Again, the focus on that Azazel or something like that, that we talked about yesterday, that the goat, the scapegoat that would be sent off, this, I believe, connects to that, the offering of the goat demons, and that it is their false sacrifice that they were offering. Again, I bring to mind the parable of the sheep and the goats. Sheep, good; goats, bad. So that little song, I just want to be a sheep. We don't want to be goats. We want to be sheep. Moving on. All right, verse 10. If any of the house of Israel or one of its strangers who are sojourn among them eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood and will cut him off from my people. For the life of the flesh is in its blood, and I have given it to you for you on the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that makes atonement by the life. Therefore, I have said to the people of Israel, no person among you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger who sojourns among you eat blood. The laws against eating blood are simple. God has shown the proper use of it, of the shedding of blood for the forgiveness of sins, for the sacrifices that were made, the life given for that animal for our life. The life of Christ given for us on the cross. And we are not to drink the blood of animals because in it is their life. It goes back to the pagan ritual again of drinking an animal's blood, thinking that you get their life force inside of them. That's not how it works. But in the one way that God does give us and commands us to eat of his body and drink of his blood in the Lord's Supper, There we receive his life and forgiveness. But otherwise, we should not drink blood from an animal. Again, because it goes back to the worship of false gods. Continuing with verse 18, or chapter 18, verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You shall not do as they do in the land of Egypt where you lived, and you shall not do as they do in the land of Canaan, to which I am bringing you. You shall not walk in their statutes. And then he gives a list of unlawful sexual relationships, talking about uncovering their nakedness. In other words, exposing the private areas is a sign of false pagan worship, whether it was with the Egyptians or the Canaanites, how they made the prostitution as part of the worship of their gods. And they're saying you should not do that. You should keep yourself pure, because God is setting them apart from the other nations. And as we read through the rest of 18 and through 19, it can really be summarized by verse 24 of chapter 18. And he says this at other times in this as well, or something very similar. Do not make yourself unclean by any of these things, the unlawful sexual relations. For by all these, the nations I am driving out before you have become unclean, and the land has become unclean, so that I punish its iniquity, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But you shall keep my statutes and my rules, and do none of these abominations, either the native or the stranger who sojourns among you. See, he is setting Israel apart as his chosen people. He is giving to them the proper ways that they should live their lives as his people, clean and free, not like the nations in their false worship, but they were to worship the one true God and serve, trust and obey and love him and him alone. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless.